There we go.
Great.
All right. So we're going to focus on hips today. Do you want to be muted, Jean, or do you want to?
Yes, please. I'm going to,
Oh, okay.
and I'm going to do that too.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, but we're going to work on hips and we're going to use a little ball and a strap. We're going to floss our hips with the strap, and then we're going to do some trigger point with the hips. And we're also going to do a mudra, which is a hand pose or a hand gesture. And we do this in yoga because different mudras, because it's like your fingers or have little energy circuits, and we're closing different circuits off for a different reason. So we're going to do the most popular one that you might see all the time in the yoga world, where you take your first finger and thumb to the tip of the thumb and first finger, pointer finger to touch, Gaya Mudra. And we'll set up our hands for that. You'll come to a comfortable seat. And so this mudra is really powerful for memory and concentration. And you just want to lightly connect the tips of your fingers together. You don't have to squeeze them pretty hard at all. And then we'll just lift the shoulders up, around, and down. Lift the heart up, let the shoulders relax down your back. Start to deepen your breath. And so particularly this mudra we're doing, the Gaya Mudra, we want to hold that while we're focusing on our breath. So let's take a slow, deep inhale. And a full, complete exhale. We'll continue that breath again, letting your inhale kind of lift the rib cage off the waist. And letting the exhale land your sitting bones and legs to the earth. We'll continue that twice more, inhaling and exhaling. Then we'll take a collected breath together, letting our inhale fill us all the way up. And exhale all the air out. You can go ahead and release that mudra and just kind of feel what it's like to have your hands free. Okay, we're going to start. Let's start. If we're opening up our hips today, we're actually going to start with the strap and lying on our back. We're going to start with flossing the hips. This is a very powerful and effective way to not only open the hips, but also the hamstrings, which can affect the hip flexors. So you'll grab your strap, lie on your back. And you can always position a prop behind your head as a pillow here, especially if your neck is tight today or your shoulders are tight. I'm going to take the strap around our right foot, and we'll bend and straighten the leg a little bit, just waking up the hamstring, and the left sole of the foot will be on the floor for now. Every day we'll feel a little different with our hamstrings, so just taking time to really notice the stretch. And then we'll hold the leg up towards straight. It does not have to be all the way straight by any means. We're going to work the strap just below the toes, right at the ball of the foot. And your job with the arms is to hold the strap and pull straight down to encourage a flex in your foot. And that will help develop the stretch. So you might feel mostly the stretch in the calf, or maybe you feel the stretch with your thigh bone kind of rooted back into the socket. Or both. Maybe you feel hamstring and calf stretching, or just one. And then decide how you want your hands to rest on the strap. So not efforting very much in the hands at all, but Maybe you hold a little lower down the straps and let your elbows relax into the floor, or maybe you stretch up high with straight arms grabbing the straps. And if you want to go a little deeper, you can extend the left leg long on the floor as well. So the legs make somewhat of a 90-degree angle here. And so we started our practice with that mudra about concentration and memory. And I invite you to kind of play with that intent today, letting that concentration be a common thread throughout our practice. So, for instance, you can concentrate on what you're stretching. The back of the right leg. Giving the stretch your undivided attention, allowing your breath to even move to that area of sensation. Taking full deep breaths. Breathing all the way down into your belly. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths. I'll let you just be in your own experience for this time. Unclenching your jaw, clenching your fist here. Can lower your leg for just a moment, but we're not done with this right side. You can also just regroup by moving your hands and wrists around. We're going to go back into the same stretch on the same leg, but modify it a little bit. So now that we've regrouped, you're going to bring your leg up again and gather both of the straps in your left hand, and your right hand will hold down your right hip on the floor. So that hip crease, you'll put your hand in the hip crease and push it down, and then guide your leg just 2 or 3 inches across your body to the left, coming into a bit of an outer hip stretch. If you want to bend and straighten the leg a few times to feel it out, you can. The more you straighten your leg, the more stretch. The more you flex your foot, right, more of a stretch. So you decide how intense you would like this. You can also pull your foot further up, as if you could stack your foot over your left shoulder. We'll just hang out here for a little bit. Concentrating on the sensation. So for some of us, we're going to feel the outside of our thigh. For others, we might still notice that calf or that hamstring stretch most prominent. We'll bring that leg back to center, and then we got one more direction we will go. You're gonna switch out your hands. You're gonna take your right hand to hold the strap, turn your right toes out to the right, and then we wanna bend our right elbow and set it on the ground alongside us, so we're creating a kickstand-like effect with that arm on the floor. So, and I always like to hold the strap with my other hand in addition, because the leg can feel really heavy. So we're going now for an inner thigh stretch, and we only want that leg to go about halfway down to the floor, not more than halfway, because we'd like to keep the left hip tacked down to the mat. You can even hold your left hip heavy to keep it from lifting higher than your right. We'll just be right here for a little bit. It's a lot of upper body strength actually to hold this stretch, because we've been using our arms for a while now. Can you soften the tops of your shoulders just a little bit more? We'll be here for about 10 more breaths. We'll come all the way up. We're actually going to do 4 things in a row here. So this is our last thing. Right leg is in the air. You'll bend your left knee and have your left foot on the floor, and you'll cross your right ankle over your left thigh. And we'll take number 4 stretch. You'll interlace your fingers through your left thigh and then pull the leg in. So now we're getting into the outer right hip. Just take a few breaths here, breathing into that right outer hip. All right, and then we get to release everything and come into star pose. Arms wide, legs wide. Pause and notice how you feel. You might feel very asymmetrical on one side. Maybe that right side feels spacious and longer than the left. Maybe you feel like a pulsation in that right hip or leg. Maybe the left just feels shorter or constricted. All right, and then we'll do it all again. So we had a whole series that we'll do over. Starting with the strap, and you might circle your wrist a few times, circle your hands around your wrist just to undo any of that tension from the hands working to hold the strap. We'll pick up our feet, plant the feet on the floor first, and then fold the left knee into the chest. Take the strap around the right ball of the foot, and you'll stretch the leg up, and then we'll just do a few moments of straightening and bending the leg, so we're not going to just hold it in a rigid way, but we're going to build up to holding the hamstring stretch. Go ahead and hold the leg towards straight, and then choose how you want to hold your strap with your hands, maybe all the way up high with straight arms, or maybe bent elbows on the mat. Choose how you want to keep your right leg. Maybe the foot stays flat on the floor. Maybe you extend the right leg long. We'll linger here for a little bit. Allowing time and gravity to do the work of opening up our body for us. But also your concentration will go a long way. We don't want to mindlessly check out while we're here. We want to actually go inward more so and concentrate on what is stretching. Imagine you can breathe into that space to soften any rough edges. We'll be here for 10 more breaths. Go ahead and lower the leg, relax your hands. We are going to come back to it, but just let's decompress our hands and shoulders for a moment. And then we'll come back to that same left leg up in the air once more, but this time we're going to do a variation. You're going to gather both of your straps in your right hand, and then take your left hand, press it on top of your left hip crease, push it down, and then guide your leg across to the right just a little bit, just to get that outer hip sensation of a stretch. And we don't want it any more than 2 or 3 inches. We want to keep the back of the left hip rooted on the mat at all times. The more you flex your foot, the more you straighten your leg, the more you'll get out of this. We'll take one more breath here. And then let your exhale, bring your leg up, and we're actually going to switch out our hands. So you'll take your left hand to hold the strap. You'll take your right hand to hold down your right hip joint. And kind of press it into the floor. And then we'll turn the left toes out to the left, lower your leg down, part way. My foot just happens to land on my windowsill, so I'll leave it there. But, and if you're near a wall, you could always use that wall. You could always push into the wall with your foot to give you more stability. And we'll be here for a little bit, opening that inner thigh up. We'll pick the leg back up, and then we have that final stretch on this left side to even it out. We'll come into our number 4 stretch. So you can remove your strap, bend your right knee, plant your right foot on the floor, left ankle crosses over right thigh for number 4 stretch. And then you can lift up your back leg, interlace the fingers behind your right thigh, pull the leg in and breathe. All right, we get to come back out to our star pose, opening arms wide, legs wide, just taking it in, letting your body melt into the floor and observing. Maybe there's a sense of balance between the right and left halves of the body this time. All right, we'll gather our knees in, and we're actually going to come up to seated and find our ball. So you can roll the knees in, and then we're going to do a little trigger point specifically to the front of our hip, specifically to the psoas muscle, if you know what that is. It's actually a kind of a hard muscle to get to. So let me show you. We will be lying on our belly for this, but I'm going to show you just kneeling so you can kind of see the lay of the land. So we go by bony landmarks. So the frontal hip bone, that like boniest kind of protrudes forward, you're going to find that bone first on your body. Then you're going to walk your fingers in about 2 inches from that bony landmark. So you're going to walk it in 1, 2, and then you're going to walk your fingers down another 2 inches, 1, 2. So, you know, it might be more like in your panty line would be the way to think of it. But what we're going to do is we're going to roll that ball. You're going to lie on your belly and you're going to kind of roll that ball in this general area wherever you feel like it's tender. And then we're going to stay there. So now that you have an idea of where we're going to have that ball, let's go ahead and lie down. Oh man, this one's intense, but worth it. And I'll explain like why it matters to open up your psoas muscle. That's what we're doing right now. Well, it's a flight or fight muscle, so it can tense up under stress. And sometimes it can just stay tensed up and we never release it. So now that you're here, just where you're at, just laying on it is enough. Like if you just stay here for the remainder of time that we're here, you're fine. But I am going to offer variations if you want to play with those, if you want to explore those, but back off from anything too intense that makes you want to grit your teeth. We don't want to grit our teeth when we're doing trigger point because the body will no longer want to relax and open. So you can come all the way down to your belly, stack your hands under your head and maybe just lay here. You could rock a little bit to the right, to the left, just kind of offsetting some of that pressure. So this is one way to be here. Another way to be here would be up on your forearms, which is going to be a bit more intense because you are kind of putting more pressure on your ball in a way. You can also offset that pressure on the ball by leaning over to the left a bit more than your right, or the opposite. If you want to go more into this depth, you can lean into it, right? So you could even rock side to side. So that's another way to be here. The third option I'll give you, and I would recommend starting all the way down and then maybe deciding if you want to go onto your forearms as a variation. But what you could do here is bend your right knee and then do a really slow windshield wiper motion of your foot. So it's foot is out to the right, foot is into the left. And what you're doing is you're actually moving your thigh bone internally and externally, and your thigh bone, well, your psoas muscle is attached to that thigh bone. So you're kind of directly affecting how that psoas muscle is stretching. And then you can maybe stay in one direction and just kind of breathe it out if you're feeling a lot of sensation. Of course, you could do this up on your forearms. I'm not going to do it on my forearms. It's a little much. And if there's any other little movements, so maybe not a windshield wiper, maybe more like a circle makes sense for your foot. You could try that out. And then when that feels satisfying, you can just release your leg. We're going to be here for 10 more breaths. I'll let you kind of decide how you want to spend these last few moments while we're here. Maybe big belly breaths, like you could breathe down into that ball or breathe around that ball. With each breath, let yourself surrender heavier into the floor, into your ball. We'll go ahead and remove the ball, and you can just lie on your belly again without it and notice the after effect. Maybe there's a bit of space. I always feel like it's a one of those like sponge toys where it's like in a capsule, and then you put it, you submerge it in water, and then it expands into the toy or the shape of the sponge, and that's kind of how it feels with trigger point. Okay, so now we have two hips. We only done one hip so far, so let's do the other. So again, you're going to find, for the left hip, you'll find that frontal bone, that bone that juts forward. That's your start. And then you'll walk your fingers in 2 inches inward and then 2 inches downward. And that will be roughly where you hold your ball. And then from there, you're welcome to just stay as you are and breathe. And that just might be what you stick to for now. But then I'm also going to offer options, right? So less is more with trigger point, you know, just lingering is the best medicine sometimes. So stay here, or you can kind of move the ball around a little bit, find that tender spot. You can stay all the way down with your head on your stacked arms, or you could come up to your forearms. You could rock a little bit away from the ball, towards the ball, until you find that sweet spot that's just enough pressure. We'll just be here, breathing down into that hip, down into your belly. Just noticing what presents itself. So sometimes thoughts and feelings can come up, especially this is a muscle that responds or reacts to stress. And then we're releasing it. So you might have a memory of like an upsetting email, or all kinds of things can come up here. So just allow it, and then just breathe through it and let it kind of move past. And so we'll be here for about 10 or so more breaths. And then we have that other variation. So before our 10 breaths are over, if you want to take that extra variation, you can, I would recommend lying all the way down first, bending your left knee and windshield wipering that foot a bit to the right, a bit to the left, getting some range, some variation in our release here. There might be a certain spot that you want to linger and stay in. And if anything feels too like much, might feel icky even, see if you can offset where you're at so it's not leaning into that territory of too much. Too much meaning unsustainable. We'll take one more breath here, inhaling into that left hip. And exhale all the way out. You can remove your ball.
And just notice your two hips before we move on. Maybe there's a clearing or an expansive quality now to the front of your hip. Maybe your low back feels looser. All right, and then we'll actually do a seated posture because we've been lying down the whole time. And we're going to revisit that mudra. So we're going to come into double pigeon. And there's two ways you can do that. And you're welcome always to sit on a prop, especially if you're feeling like you have a tight low back or tight hips today. Sit on a prop. And we'll have our left leg on top of our right leg to some capacity. So you can start the beginner option, or if you have really tight hips today, start with ankle on top of ankle with just like I'm showing you here. If you're feeling up for it and you want to go deeper, you can take shin on top of shin to where you line up your legs in such a way that it's like, they call it fire log pose also, like you're stacking one fire log on top of the other, one shin on top of the other. So you'll take your left foot over your right knee, and then you'll angle your right foot directly under your left knee. And so this would be double pigeon or fire log pose as well. And you can always, if you want to add props to this, you can always stick a prop in between that top knee and bottom foot if there's a lot of space. If you get into this pose and suddenly you feel like you need to sit on a prop, please go grab that prop and sit on it, because we'll be here for a little bit. We want to feel like we can relax into it. And you can always dial it back to ankle on top of ankle if you prefer. All right, so here we are, double pigeons, doubly challenging. So you're welcome to just take a few moments sitting up tall, maybe take your fingertips to the floor, lengthen the sides of your waist, lengthen your spine. You might like having your hands alongside you on the floor as support, so maybe stick with that, or you want to take that mudra we did at the beginning. You will take the tip of your pointer finger and the tip of your thumb lightly together, and then you can rest your backs of your hands on your legs. And again, focusing on that concentration, that quality, helping with our memory in this mudra. And then allowing yourself to kind of soften around this shape, this sort of intense shape we're in. Can your bones become heavy, but can your muscles and tissue start to relax away from the bone? Can you feel the tip of your thumb and the tip of your pointer finger connected ever so gently? Can you concentrate there and deepen your breath? Now, of course, if you're needing more sensation at any point, we're going to be here for a couple of minutes. You can always start to shift your body more and more forward into more of a forward fold. You can ditch the mudra at any point. Some people like to rest their arms on the floor. They like to put props under their forehead or chest or arms. So I'm going to leave it up to you, but I'm going to stay upright just because that feels like the best idea today for this body. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths, and I invite you to relax your forehead and part your teeth for these 10 breaths. All right, we'll come out of this pose and you can simply unwind your legs gradually. Take your hands behind you on the floor, lean back on your hands and just regroup by bouncing the knees or rocking your feet right and left, just taking a moment to pause before we go to the next side. So really taking in what you just did for your body. Maybe noticing, we were talking about stiffness earlier before I hit record, and yin yoga is especially good for the joints and the tissues to help prevent stiffness because we're doing a squeeze and soak method. So when we're in the pose, we're compressing areas of the body. When you come out of the pose, those areas we compress get to rehydrate again, and that can help prevent stiffness. So noticing that as we get into the other side, let's come back up to seated. We had our left leg on top the first go around. So let's have our right leg on top now. So you can take ankle over ankle or shin over shin. We'll take that right foot over left knee. And then right knee over left foot. And then maybe a block or something in between as needed. Feel free to sit on a prop or not. We'll just take a moment to settle into ourselves. And then you do want both of those frontal hip bones, you want them pointed straight ahead, as the shins are also straight ahead. So finding your breath here. Finding a tall spine is a starting place. If you're unable to have a tall spine, that's an indicator you want to sit on a prop. And then if you would like to take that mudra again, first finger and thumb tip touch. Your other fingers are just extended long. So it's like your palm is open to receiving. And just be here. Concentrating, focusing. We'll be here a little longer. Notice if the intensity of this pose somehow translating up your body, maybe into your shoulders. Is there a bit of engagement there? Can you work some of that out? Maybe shrug the shoulders up, around and down, maybe move the jaw around, just in case. We don't want that tension we're releasing in the low body to transfer and hold itself in the upper body. So that's why we're breathing so deeply in through the nose, out through the mouth especially, can move that tension out of our body. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths. Carefully, with care, we'll unwind our legs and we'll actually lie on our back next, and do have a prop handy. We're going to use it under the hips. It can be a block or a book or a folded blanket or a pillow. Something with a little bit of height is helpful, but it doesn't have to even have that much height. And technically you could do it without a prop. So let's lie on our back and we'll take waterfall pose. And you could always do legs up the wall instead of waterfall pose. They're very similar poses. So if you have a wall or you have a prop, you decide. But if you're in the middle of your mat for waterfall, you'll bend your knees, bridge your hips, slide your prop on a kind of a wider setting at the bottom of your spine, right at the back of your hips. And then you'll float your legs up in the air. You might just point and flex your feet, circle the feet around the ankles a few moments before you settle in stillness. And you can always readjust the prop, lower down your spine if it feels uncomfortable on your back. I'm just gonna chill here for a little bit. This is a really good posture to do, in my opinion, especially in the summer, because it has a very cooling effect to it. It's a really good restorative posture for many reasons, but for the summer, I would definitely, this is my go-to. So I recommend this whenever you need to cool off. All right, and then we'll just slowly come out of that. If you're doing legs up the wall and you would rather just stay doing legs up the wall for your Shavasana today, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to take us out of waterfall pose into Shavasana. So you can lower your feet to the ground and pause there.
And then bridge your hips up, remove your block, and then slowly melt your spine down. And I do recommend gathering your knees into your chest first and massaging. And if you're doing legs up the wall and you're coming out of it, you would also gather your knees into your chest and rock the low back into the floor. And then we'll make our way into our final pose, Shavasana. And if you want to try more of a wide star pose variation today, that might be interesting. But any Shavasana version will do. We'll just take a moment to rest. We'll just with care gradually reemerge, starting with the breath from our rest. And taking that breath, deepening it, and then moving out from there, moving our fingers and toes, our wrists and ankles. Maybe taking a full body stretch, initiating a yawn. And then we'll gather our knees into our chest, roll to the side, and you'll make your way up to a seat. And as you sit, just take a moment to acknowledge kind of this time that you spent on yourself, going inward, noticing the internal body, the internal landscape. Notice how you feel on the inside. Maybe parts of you have opened up, and that's thanks to the breath. The breath is what opens us, creates space. It's also what connects us to the present moment. We don't have one foot in the past or one foot in the future as much. With both feet a little more in the moment. And we'll bring our hands together at our heart and bow the thinking mind to the caring heart. Thank you so much for joining me for your practice. Namaste.